Well, dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for every person that's about to hear just the testimony of what you've done in my life, God. I just give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise, Father. And I thank you for just life-changing transformations taking place, Father, over every person who hears this message, Father. In Jesus' name. Well, my name is Bo. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm 21 years old. My whole life I've claimed I was a Christian. I claimed I've known God, and even at an early age, I remember going to church, going to vacation Bible school, all that stuff, and then claiming like, yeah, I'm a Christian, I love God. But maybe about 13 or 14 rolled around, and I tried weed for the first time, and then I started smoking every day and started partying and hanging out with the wrong group of kids, and started going to church just to skateboard and just to be cool, and by the time 15, 16 rolled around, I had tried cocaine for the first time, and then ecstasy, and then I started going to like hardcore parties, and eventually I started selling ecstasy and LSD and all that stuff. And by the time 18, 19 rolled around, I was making thousands selling ecstasy in clubs, and I was throwing raves with a production company in Houston called Underworld Entertainment. They're actually still throwing raves to this day with thousands of people at them, and I was so deep in it, and even in the midst of all that, I was taking 10, 15 ecstasy pills every night, doing so much cocaine, acid, all of it, in the midst of that, I still claimed that I was a Christian and that I knew God, but little did I know I was deceived. Well, one night, I'm at a rave. It was our rave. It was called Glow, and it was a massive. There was probably about 2,000-3,000 people, maybe 4,000 people at this rave. There was 5 different rooms with DJs or whatever, and my job was to do the VIP room. Well, I'm sitting in the VIP room, and I look in front of me, and I see this girl. She just looks so evil. She's just waving her head back and forth, and it's like just a demon staring at me, man. And I go to tell my friend who's sitting next to me. I'm like, hey, dude, do you see this chick? And he's already looking at her, and he goes, dude, she's been staring over here for a long time. And he just had this scared look on his face. Well, he's like, man, I just have a weird feeling, like I just have a weird feeling tonight, like something bad's gonna happen. Well, that's what started the night out. Well, I end up going to leave the VIP room, and I look to my right, and I see this huge translucent hooded figure. It looks like the Grim Reaper. And it just sends like a shock through my heart, and I grab my friend. I'm like, hey, dude, you need to get me out of here. And I was only on 2 X pills and like 2 hits of acid, and I did a little bit of cocaine. I normally did 5 times what I did right there, and so it wasn't that I was just tripping. This was real. And I get in this hallway, and these 2 kids both look at me at the same time with the most wicked looks on their face. Well, we end up going through this crowd of people. And it's probably like 2,000 people just dancing to this dubstep music, and then I just feel the weight of the sin that I caused, just how wicked everything was, and how that it was my fault, Well, I grabbed my friend. I'm like, dude, you got to get me out of here. Well, all the times that God tried to reach out to me start playing before me, and like every time that like God tried to use my mom to reach out to me, because my mom always tried to tell me about God and everything, Well, we end up getting in the next room. In this room, I look in front of me, and it's all the people that led me away from God in my life. And I realized at this point that I was dead, and I was in hell, and I was being shown why I was going to hell. God showed me the chances He gave me in my life. God showed me the wickedness that I caused by throwing these raves, and then God showed me how I chose to sin with all of my friends and turn my back on God. And then this weight of this helplessness that I can't even. It's Picture you were married, and then you cheated on your wife. You got really drunk, and you were on your way home you just had sex with this girl that wasn't your wife, and then you're on your way home, and you get in a car accident. Well, the people that you hit, it was your wife and your 2 kids, and you killed them, and you were completely fine. That feeling is what I felt times 1,000. I would never wish it upon any human being. And it was just helplessness and despair, and it was like I was never going to have another chance, and it was over, and it was just reality that I was going to hell, and there was nothing I could do about it. And in that moment, I cried out to God with all my might. I said, God, save me. God, help me, please. And this kid that was with me, he grabs me, and he looks at me, he goes, Bo, don't look in my eyes. I'm going to get you out of here. And then in my mind, it would play, but Satan is a liar. And then when that would happen, he'd look at me, and it was like a demon would just come out of his face, and then all the people that led me away from God would just be laughing and tormenting me, like no, there's no getting out of here. Well, I cried out to God one more time, and I ended up getting out of it. I busted through this door and ran down the staircase. I ended up getting out of the rave. My leader of my production company was there, and she was dressed up like an angel. I was her costume for the night or whatever. We start talking, and it's like God's talking straight to me through her. And I look at her, and I'm like, man, it's like God's speaking to me right now. And she looks at me, and she goes, well, Bo, some things happen for a reason. And she went back inside. Well, anyways, I leave the rave, whatever. We go back to the DJ's house. They all lived in this one big house in Houston, and I went back there, and all these people start showing up, and they're all hippies, drug dealers, whatnot, you know, and they're like, nah, dude, you just had a bad trip, and I could barely even talk at this point. So I did a bunch of cocaine and whatnot. I went back to drugs. About a week or two goes by. I ended up trying meth for the first time. I did a half a gram of meth, about 5 ecstasy pills, and a bunch of cocaine, you know, and I'm laying in my bedroom after a night at a party, and I'm laying on my bed, and in my bathroom I see all these demons. They look like gargoyles, you know, and I've tripped so many times. I've taken probably over 1,000+ ecstasy pills, what I saw, it's not, when you trip and stuff, you see colors, you see shapes and stuff like that. Everything's wavy or whatnot. The walls come out at you, but you don't see literal, real things that are there. And I see all these demons in my bathroom, and bugs start pouring down my walls, and I look above my bed, and there's just like a light cloud on my side and darkness on the other side where the demons were, and it was pulling back and forth over my body. It was like spiritual warfare. I look to my right, and I see a big black snake crawling in my bedroom. It was like Satan. And I go to jump off my bed and pray, and when I do this, my power shuts off in the whole house, and in my mirror I see my body laying where I was. Well, I go to run downstairs, and at the top of my stairs I see, it's like, in the shadows, it was like 3 demons around a body, and they touched it with their little sticks they had in their hands, and it caught on fire, and they started dancing around it in a circle. I run downstairs to tell my mom. She was fasting and praying for me my whole life. She actually adopted me whenever I was a baby. 15 years before I was born, she had a word from God that she was going to have a blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy. And she's a hardcore Christian, you know, and just fasted and prayed for me my whole life. But 15 years later, she has red hair, and my adoptive dad has dark hair, so there's no way, like, blonde hair, blue eyes come out of that. So they had a son with brown hair, and they had a son with red hair. Well, like, 15 years later, here I come. My biological father, he was a gangbanger, a drug dealer, sold the same drugs I did. My mom, she was a stripper, and she was going to have me aborted. But when I was in her womb, my dad said, hey, if you have my son killed, I'm going to have you killed. And she didn't abort me. Well, I was put in crack homes, you know, when I was like 1 year old, and CPS, the Child Protective Services, got me and gave me to this lady that I'm with now. She's actually my great aunt, you know, and so there goes that word from God, that blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy. She fasted and prayed for me my whole life. Well, I'm downstairs in my house, and I tell her what's going on. You know, she's freaking out. The power just went off in the house and came back on. She goes, what's going on? And I'm like, Mom, there's demons all in my bathroom or in my bedroom. You need to help me. Well, she puts her hand on my shoulder, and she just screams at the top of her lungs. She just goes, Satan, get out of my house. And when she does that, my power goes off and on in my house like 10 times, I promise. Like my mom will even attest to this today. It's like something you'd see in a movie. My power just goes off, on, every light, the TV, everything. She grabs the phone to call my dad, and on the screen it's like there's thousands of little, or hundreds of little numbers to where she can't dial. It looks like the Matrix, like how there's all those numbers. And then she screams it again. She says, Satan, get out of my house. And when she does this, everything stops. And I was on the meth, coke, and ecstasy. I laid down right on the couch and went to sleep. And normally when you're on those drugs, you'll stay up for about 2-3 days maybe. And anyways, the next day I wake up and I'm like, you know what, God, I quit drugs. I'm done with this. You know, I end up going to a rave. It was one of our raves. You know, we had one every Wednesday at this place called the Meridian in Houston. Well, I end up going. I helped set it up, whatnot, whatever. You know, and every 30 seconds, a kid's coming up to me, hey, dude, do you have any X pills? Or, hey, dude, what do you got tonight, you know? And I'm just telling them, hey, God's real. Like, y'all need to be doing drugs. Well, one of my dealers shows up at this rave, and he walks up to me, shows me probably 100, 200 MDMA capsules, which is like ecstasy. He's like, hey, dude, if you need anything, just let me know, I'm here. And I was like, all right, whatever, dude. And he leaves. Well, these two kids that I always sell to come up to me, and they're like, hey, dude, you got any Molly, which that's MDMA, ecstasy, whatnot, you know, in capsules. And I'm like, I feel in my pocket, because I'm used to always having like $200-300 on me at least, you know. I felt in my pocket at like $20, and I was like, yeah, you know what, dude, follow me. So I took them to my dealer or whatever, did a little transaction, then bought like a couple of them. I made $20, whatever. Well, at the end of the rave, the security guard would, throughout the course of the night, would check people's pockets as they would come through the gate. And if he found drugs or whatever, he'd throw them in the trash and let them still come in. Well, at the end of the night, I got to go through that trash can. While I'm looking, I find some X pills, I find a pipe and stuff, and I give them to my friends that I was with, and I go home. I didn't do any drugs that night. The only thing, I drank a beer or whatever. So the next day I'm at my house, and I'm just like so convicted because God gave me so many chances. I mean, like, I had my hell experience, then I had all the demon stuff in the house that he showed me, like what I was doing, and then now this, I go back to it again like a dog returning to its own vomit. Well, I was like, God, will you please speak to me? And I would open up the Bible and I would point, and every time it said, like, you're a like liar, hell, hypocrite, destruction, like all of this over and over and over again. I'm just getting so scared. Well, my dad comes home and he's like, what's wrong, son? He sees me crying. It's my adoptive parents, by the way. He looks at me, he's like, what's wrong, son? Why are you crying? And I'm like, Dad, is there a point where God won't forgive me? And he says, no, son, you just really have to change. Well, we end up going to my mom's antique store. My dad leaves. I look at my mom, and I'm sober at this point. I haven't done any drugs for at least a week. I look at my mom, and I just see this ring of light around her whole body, like this white presence coming off of her. And I look at her, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, God, will you please speak through my mom to me? Well, as soon as I think that, dude, she looks at me, and it's like God looking straight at me, dude. She just has these piercing eyes, man, and she picks up this white plate, and she starts wiping it. And the symbolization of this was, I was that white plate, and the whole time she was talking to me, she was wiping this plate, and it was like God speaking straight to me. And the symbolization was like I was that white plate, and he was washing me clean as he was talking to me, and he had me in his hands. And at the end of it, was like God said, straight through my mom, he said, read Isaiah 54. And I opened it up in the Bible, and it says, more of the children of the desolate than of the married woman. And that's me. Like, I'm adopted. I was brought up from a family of wickedness. And it's basically saying, like, how I chose wickedness and how God turned his face from me for a little bit, but God was going to restore everything. And it says, I'm going to establish you in righteousness. All your children will be taught by the Lord. And then at the end it says, I've created the blacksmith who blows the coals and pulls out an instrument for his use. And basically what that means is, like, I was in that furnace of transformation, and God was pulling out an instrument to use, and that was me. Like, everything I was going through, God was about to change it and use me. And right when that clicked, God's presence just consumed me, man. It was like a waterfall of just God's glory, and this like light pierced my soul and washed out everything. I was a gangster. I would rob people. I've kicked down doors in somebody's house. Like, I've done everything, man. And every bit of like wickedness that day left me. The way I thought was changed. Every drug addiction was gone. Like, my right nostril is 3 times bigger than my left one from doing cocaine. Like, every single addiction left me. I didn't have any withdrawals, no relapses. It was like I was a brand new person, man. It was like I was blind and then I saw, you know, and just that moment just forever changed me, you know. There's about almost 3 years ago, you know, and now knowing Jesus, man, like, I've seen so many miracles. Like, I've seen a girl fully blind fully paralyzed get out of a wheelchair. I've seen people, walking around Walmart, God will tell me, hey, that dude has a stomach problem. I walked up to him, hey, man, God told me he had a stomach problem. And they'll be, oh, my gosh, how did you know that? And then he'll pray for him, and they'll get healed, you know, and just walking in the fullness of the Lord, like what the Bible promises, you know, like real Christianity, knowing God. And now that I know the Lord, like, it's amazing, man. I would never go back, you know, and God's calling you to this as well. So I'm going to pray one more time. Father, I thank you so much for every person that just heard that message, Father. God, I just pray for the fire of God upon their life. Father, whether it's a Christian who's backslidden, Father, an atheist, a Buddhist, whatever, Lord, you love them so much. Father, I pray that you would mark them as a man or woman after your own heart, Father, and lead and guide every step they take, Father. I thank you for amazing grace. Father, I thank you for the favor of the Lord being upon their life, Father. I thank you that you love them so much, God. I pray that you would use them, Father, to reach out to every kid in their high school, Father, whatever it is, Father. Mark them, God. Mark them, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Yeah, bro.